And with that, it is another Not Playing Politics with Alexander Keaton. As always, Nick Bradshaw, my Rio, is right there. Sorry for a bit of the delay. My my roofing guy showed up like, I don't know, 7 minutes ago. I was like, hey, I'm here to drop off the big container for your, so we can start doing your roof tomorrow. And of course, I'm the only one here. So I had to take care of that. Real life gets in the way from time to time. So we apologize for being a few minutes late, but it's worth it because, as always, Nick has an interesting perspective. Nick, are we winning?
I mean, with regard to your roof, I was more thinking about the roof is on fire. We don't know expletive
water.
Let the expletive deleted burn.
Yeah.
That's the Not Playing Politics version. That's the Not Playing Politics politically correct version.
Did you see the movie where, since this actually now is intertwining politics with that song, was it Chris Rock who did the film where he became like president or something? I can't remember what it was. Like he actually won. Maybe he was senator or something, but he was just some guy, and who was running. And I think it was president. I haven't even. It's been a while. Anyway, there's a scene where they're throwing a party, and he brings in a DJ, and he's there, and he's actually DJing the party at one point, and he's like, the roof is on fire. And he, of course, throws out the mic where everyone's supposed to scream, we don't need no water. And, of course, what you hear is everyone scream, are all these upper crust elite screaming, the roof is on fire. They all run out of the party.
That's fantastic.
I can't remember the name of the movie, but yes, no, the roof is not on fire at the moment. It is missing some shingles, though. But no. So aside from the fact that I'm going to have a much better roof starting tomorrow, where are we winning? How are we winning? Or are we winning at all? Is this winning actually an illusion?
Well, I mean, I think that, drawing from some pieces that I've seen where they've been covering some things living here in Texas and watching the news that we've been making nationally, and just sitting back and I think just catching our breath as other things creep in, like roof repair or job transfers or whatever happens. It's a way of recalibrating, I think. In the political system that we have, for one side to AKA win, does that by definition mean the other side has to lose? For me, what I'm thinking of is that there's two tiers that I'm looking at here when I say winning. I think we look at it from a tactical level, and then we look at it from kind of a strategic level. So from a tactical level, it's the simple, okay, well, hey, it was great that the Republicans, performed really well in the area that they did, because they're trying to, again, that's a tactical example. For more of the strategic level of, kind of pushing back on some big item tickets, right? Another one we've seen are things like, depending upon where people sit with regard to conceal carry liberties, I happen to support them. So for me, seeing states like Texas start to push, now there's been movement before in bills like this, but this one appears like it's got a little more stickiness to its traction than before with regard to constitutional carry. So we'll see. Representative Dan Crenshaw, who has been dealing with, some pretty substantial eye surgeries, looks like, God willing, God bless that to him and his family, that there will be something, hopefully getting, some of our representatives back into the fight. Not that he ever dropped out of the fight, but, just maybe a little more capable for him, a little more comfortable for him, a little more overcoming the challenges that he faces there. I was not aware of the extent of the damage done to his other eye. And in so reading and uncovering, it's amazing when you see, how much people can do when they put their heart to something and they don't let those struggles get in the way. So we see these things kind of coming together. We see things coming where people are coming out and voting here in Austin, Texas. another initiative that was a hot button topic here, and something that I participated in the election, or the voting, I should say, was with regard to something called Proposition B. With regard to how they were going to address the homelessness issue in Austin, and finding ways to address it that would potentially add to a bit more security. I don't want to unintentionally criminalize people by any means, but I do want to increase any level of security. So you start adding up a movement, and that was taken up and passed. So you start adding up a movement here, a movement here, a movement here, a movement here, and that you start building on things. Now, jumping to that strategic level from that tactical level, you're starting to see states now that are pushing back against entire movements. You've got entire state legislatures. Kansas in particular recently just came out with some of their gun laws that are looking like they're going to be, very pro Second Amendment movements and pro individual liberty movements, and that's great. You're seeing entire states pushing against, CRT, critical race theory, and coming back and saying, hold on a second, this is an important conversation to have. Race is an important topic, and exposing our children to diverse ideas and open-mindedness. These are all great things. But when you get into the nuts and bolts and read what some of these things are that are being pushed, that's not education, it's indoctrination. And not only is it indoctrination, it's patently inaccurate. So if I have a problem with CRT, the first thing I would say to anybody talking about it is that, as someone who loves history, as someone who loves processes, as someone who loves dialogue and debate, it doesn't speak to any of those points. Historically, it's proven not to be very responsive or reliable. It doesn't breed conversation, it breeds isolation, and it doesn't seem to work through a process other than, let's just cram it into schools and make you feel guilty, or consequently, the flip side of it, you have people that feel disgraced, as though something has been done that there's a part that I'm stuck thinking about, where there was a child coming to their parents dealing with, I think they said the child was even potentially dealing with depression at the age of 7, out of the disgrace that they felt for their race because they were white. That to me isn't fixing a problem. It's certainly not generating a conversation, and it's not being enforced and reinforced by historical background. That's like saying, oh, those people used to have diabetes, so to understand their conflict, let's make sure everybody has diabetes. I think what you do to break that chain is that you embrace, from both the tactical and the strategic level, how to start having actual conversations. And I don't mean conversations surrounded by 25 people that agree with you. I mean us having a debate, having a general not just shocking people. In fact, the title of tonight's show, when we were working on pre-production, it's ironic. We're using it ironically because of the concept of just that phrase, winning. I remember hearing Charlie Sheen about that years ago. So, short answer, both the tactical level wins and the kind of strategic shifts that were coming. Do I think we're winning? I think we're starting to see that maybe the universe doesn't have to end just because the president changes. And to that note, I'll kick it over to you as to what you think about former President Trump starting his platform here.
I think so actually, I love what you said there. And I want to address one topic before, or one thing you said before we talk about that, because I do think that's actually going to be, it's not what it needs to be yet, but it's a very, very good baby step in the right direction.
I agree with you. I think it's incrementalism. Sure.
But I want to talk about, does winning mean someone else has to lose? And I think the problem with, again, all of this is we've been in a I win, you lose sort of conversation as a nation for the longest time, right? We've treated this whole thing as like you said, I win, you lose. That's not the conversation that we're trying to have on this show at all. But that having been said, there is, I think, an ideological victory that does have to occur. There is an ideology that has to lose if we are actually to move forward. Because so ideally is if our broad, and I mean this in the broadest sense of the ideological tent wins, right? It will be good for everyone, right? It doesn't mean I want everyone to agree lock, stock, and barrel with me, but there are some key ideas that have to win here: liberty, free speech, responsibility, not being racist. And at this point, the left is racist. Their ideology, their mentality, totalitarianism, authoritarianism. These need to be ideas that these ideas have to lose if we are going to survive as a society. The ideology that this society that they are trying to that the left is supporting now is pushing. This ideology is inherently dangerous because it is racist, it is totalitarian, it is anti-liberty. It will lead to suffering and death. That is why I do believe it has to lose. But do people have to lose here? No, I don't think so. I think winning in this case we have to win the ideological war, not necessarily for my side to win and their side to lose, but for everyone to prosper. And it's not, again, the big tent idea. There's a ton of things and variables in which we can all debate and discuss and move things forward. No one person is going to have all the solutions, but if we don't have the liberty and the freedom to even have the conversation, if we are confined by this identitarianism, if we are locked into this anti-science wokeness, where math is racist now, it's this ideology that we are fighting does have to lose, or we're never going to be able to move forward. We're never going to be able to rebuild. We're just going to be a society that ends up collapsing on itself. And if you thought the collapse of the Roman Empire was bad, you ain't seen nothing until our world empire collapses in on itself because of this woke ideology. It will make the Dark Ages look like a picnic. And that's why I do think I agree. This is not about a Republican winning over a Democrat. There is an ideology though that does have to win, because if we lose this fight, where else do we go for freedom? For over the last century and before that, people came here for freedom. If we lose freedom here, we lose it everywhere. So I do think that in that aspect there does need to be victory. But I agree with you. We don't need to be looking as well. I want to make certain that person loses, or no. We need to be looking at winning being people coming to our side, understanding and hearing our message, because there is going to be nothing left if we lose. Now, how do we hear? Now, the big question is, how do we get that message out? YouTube for now is allowing us to broadcast because at this point, let's be honest, I don't think they know we exist, right? I mean, I'm certain that there's an algorithm out there somewhere that knows we exist, but we're not big enough for them to care about. And we're not pushing hard enough for them to want to take us off the air anyway. But there are other people with other voices, like President Trump. This new website, I think, is a great step in that direction, where it's basically just a microblog, which is what Twitter is. Twitter is nothing more than a centralized hub for micro tweeting or micro blogging. That's all that is. Now, if we can there's a piece of technology that people are working on. Tim Pool actually talked about this, and I think I know he's working on it. But this is an interesting app idea, or it's not really an app. It's called an add-on. But the concept behind this is, instead of Facebook, right, where there's a centralized platform, everyone goes to the platform and puts their micro blog on Facebook or on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, right? What this would do is allow you to have your own website, right? Like let's say we create the Not Playing Politics with Alexander Keaton and Nick Bradshaw.com. Be a heck of a URL to type in, so you definitely want to favor that. But we would put this app on, but we could take the app, put it on our website. We would microblog, tweet, whatever you want to call it, to that website. You, as one of our dearest friends who absolutely favorited our website, also liked and decided to follow our microblog on this app. And so there's never a chance that we could ever be taken offline because we own it's the website. It's our website. We are microblogging to our own website. You're seeing it because you're following it. And that's what this widget, this app would do, is it would allow you to follow microblogging on individual websites. So then Donald Trump can microblog on his webpage. You'd always get it because you're following him. We could microblog on our website. You'd be following us. You wouldn't need to go to everyone's website to see it. It would still pop up on your phone on this app, and it would entirely replace any ability for Facebook or Twitter or any of them to have any say over anyone or over anything that you say. If you don't like what I'm microblogging, if you don't like what Nick is microblogging, if you don't like what the president is microblogging, if you don't like what Jiminy Cricket on tennis.com is microblogging, you can unfollow them. You want it, you follow them. You could do it all. You would be in control. There is no centralized platform. No one being deplatformed. No one being kicked out of the town square. And we get to say goodbye to these large enterprises like Facebook and Twitter. We get to get rid of it because it's irrelevant now. None of us actually have to put up with that foolishness. We can just follow the people we actually want to follow on their own websites. That is the future. That's where we need to be. We need to decentralize and get away from these large, powerful organizations that control all that you see and hear, like it was the Outer Limits.
I mean, I think all of us at any time, at or one time or another, can all find a way with which decentralization can be utilized, and be taken to a place that can become effective, whether it's smaller scale, larger scale, political scale, personal scale, technological scale, economic scale. Diving in the road of history, as we were talking about before, the concept that comes to mind when I think of decentralization through a government entity, I typically tend to think about that of the Confederacy versus that of the Union. Looking at the elements of how the Confederacy was operating, both from an economic standpoint, a management standpoint in terms of government, and you had the Articles of our own country, for example, where we had that loose banding together under the Articles of Confederation, and then we had that of the stronger centralized form of a federalized government under the Constitution. I think it's interesting. I'm going to go back to the title of the name of our country. We are the United States of America, therefore acknowledging each state. I do find it rather comical at times when you see people that say things like, well, I don't understand why a state like Wyoming has the same number of senators as New York. And I don't say dismissively to hurt anyone's, sense of history or anyone's, feelings, of course, but it shows a brazen lack of understanding of the concept of our government, right? And, to that of how populations are driven by representation. And, there are those, again, in the news with the redistribution of that population, talking through the census, that there could have potentially even been more seats that flipped. Were there some shenanigans going on? I don't know. When you get into the concept of having a decentralized form, I think that's why, on the flip side of it, like everything else, all things in balance, if you take things too far to the decentralized side, they collapse and they fall apart. Antifa is a good example of a decentralized leadership structure. There is no real, maybe there are behind closed doors and blah, 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 but between you and me, the concept of them utilizing social media to basically just strike like a hornet's nest on something, and swarm. That is how a decentralized structure of communication and social movement can take place. The problem with that is that it can only sustain in a chaotic time. There is no leadership to it. There's no. I want to word this how I see it in my head. Antifa is a little. I'm getting a little off the reservation here on this, but the concept of decentralization is very, very interesting to me, and the concept of diffusion is very interesting to me. Both how technology diffuses across an enterprise and across a society, but how ideas do the same thing. Antifa, as repulsive as I find them in every possible capacity, I don't think they're there. I don't think they're loyal to anything other than whatever their internal compass that points to whatever that may feel in the moment. But Antifa, I don't think is going to draw anybody to it that wasn't already kind of going that way anyway. I think Antifa just put a name on a group of people that already had those ideologies, and now they felt like they could come out and cosplay a character, right? I don't think that you or me or friends, family, and colleagues that we know would be like, I'm not really thinking about it like this, but now that Antifa's here, oh my gosh, I'm totally Antifa. I think it just put under a banner a group of people that already ascribe to that belief structure. So I'm going to pull this cart back into the barn here and say, decentralization can come with positive and negative aspects and elements like anything. With regard to the mediated complex that I think you're talking about, I think the internet has done that. However, I do believe there's also so much gatekeeping going on now from the tech oligarchs and from the environment of what's been happening that you saw in the news today. I mean, the president, they're going to uphold the ban at least for another 6 months on Facebook. Now, the defense from one side is, well, Facebook's a private company, they can do what they want. But that's where the danger of companies jumping back and forth between being publishers and being platforms. So, I mean, let's call it what it is. If it is. If you see other people posting on these platforms and you see what they're writing, when the Ayatollah can write things and not be banned, there should be nothing else. And I'm not saying not being banned. I'm saying go look at some of the things that he's actually put out. The credibility of that has gone away. And lastly, a little tangent here. You're seeing in the news as well. Look at the amount of fact checking done under the current administration vice the previous, and look at the positive spin given to this. I mean, forget the fact that it's post-Trump. There's reporting coming out saying that this is some of the most positive. Again, it could all be op-ed, but this is the least confrontational press engagement with almost any president, certainly in the last other than Bush, outside of 9/11. I don't know. And then I'll end by saying this: a loose confederacy, even through the channels of the media like that, it's hard to. It's like wrestling cats, right? It's a struggle. It's a big time struggle. So we have to find those channels ourselves or develop those channels ourselves. And I think shows like Candace Owens' show and Dave Rubin's show and Ben Shapiro's show and whatever channel the president's working on, and what we talked about last week. I'm not a big fan of boycotting, only because I think that necessarily has because I don't believe that every single person that works at that company is therefore some horrible thing. I think that you're getting a lot of the opinions of the vociferously loud people at the top. But I do think that when I start to hear companies putting out opinions publicly, I find myself naturally pulling away based off of that. I'm flying to visit my family, and I found myself realizing that I was checking which airline I was flying, specifically because of the ways that they've come out against certain policies. I found that interesting. I don't think I would have ever done that before.
Well, so before we get too far into that, because I completely agree, and I think that's really the next step for this to go. I was noticing some of the questions that we had. And do we own our own servers? Do we own our own network? That's the thing. There is with what happened to Parler. First of all, Parler needs to be suing. Now, if they're not, that's on them. But there is in a truly free and open society, you could move your website to a server host that says, look, we allow XYZ. Because what's happening now is that big tech has a lot of protections because of the government, and this is where I wanted to push. So this also ties together with what you said. Well, Facebook's a private company. It's not really a private company. That's sort of the trick. They're a private company when they want to be a private company, but then they are hand in hand with the government when they want to be when it's convenient to be hand in hand.
Well,
with
I'm
the
just saying
government.
they're not a public. They're not a public institution. They're not the Library of Congress. Now, what people are saying is they
Well,
should
hold on,
treat it,
hold on. You're right.
such
Well,
because
hold on.
they have that
Well,
ability.
hold on, but stop right there because that's the thing is you're right. It isn't a public institution, but they have protections by the government to prevent certain types of lawsuits under the auspices of being a free and open platform, which is something they're not living up to. That's fraud. The
Well,
government has
they're
when we look at.
right. That's just good business, right? I mean, where's the government to push back?
Oh, sorry, say again. You cut out there for a second.
Sorry, where's the? And excuse my interruption. Where's the? I mean, let's call it what it is. If they were able to gather that kind of capacity with under the government's highly watchful eye, where's the government now to hold them accountable? Yeah, you're seeing stories saying that Republicans are talking about breaking them up. Sure, I'll believe it when it happens. I don't think I don't think they've got the votes, and I don't think they've got the power, and I don't think they've got the drive really to do it. I think they need a bad guy. And until they start seeing that it's going to massively sway elections, and I do believe that there is impact. Let me state that for the record. I do believe that social media has an impact to a lot of these things. And it doesn't always have to just be presidential elections. It can be local elections. It can be, people going after businesses. It can be, I think it's a tremendously powerful instrument. But they were smart enough to come in and grab all these protections. They're certainly never going to give them up. I love those commercials that you see on television when it's like the internet's been under the same rule for 30 years, and this is how much has changed since then. And we're all about this opening, and the company producing the commercial is Facebook. Sure,
Right.
I want Zuckerberg to stand up and say, you know what, 230 is not fair. You're right. Here you go. Here it is. Here it is back. I want him to be the Jonas Salk of this generation and say, I've discovered the vaccine and I'm going to give it to the world for free.
Yeah, he's not going to do that.
Right, but where are the politicians to push back on it, other than the same 10 vociferous ones that yell about it?
And of course, the question I even have is, and again, this is from someone who voted for Ted Cruz, and loves Ted Cruz by and large. But even I'm looking at what he's been doing, and I'm like, are you actually trying to do something, or are you simply just pretend? Are you play acting? Are you showing the legitimate dangers of all this and where we need to go? But you're not really going to push hard enough to do anything.
Oh no, I think some of these guys want to do it. Josh Hawley, I think, has tried to make an honest attempt. I think a lot of these guys do. I just think they realize that they're not stupid. They realize they don't have the numbers. I don't mean to sound like a cynic, but I mean, let's just call it. It's not going to come out. Period.
Oh yeah. No, you're right, and I agree with that. They don't have the numbers yet. That's a big problem, which is why again I was saying we need lawsuits. This goes back to being able to have websites on your own servers. I mean, so right now Amazon's not taking down all these other websites, right? Like I said, Parler's got a really good case for lawsuit. The fact that they aren't suing the crap out of Twitter and Amazon for collusion is insane right now. But that's between them and their attorneys. But that's the whole point. As we decentralize, as we find, and that's what we need to be promoting, to take away power from these companies. But these companies were given protections by the government. Do you think Google's as big as it is because without the government? I mean, actually, the government is using Google and their services. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is how they got that big. That's why Amazon is where it is the government picked winners and losers. They went and said, we're going to work with you. We need XYZ from you. And they did it. And again, from Apple, Amazon, and Google, it's all server farms, it's networking, it's programming. I guarantee you Facebook is working with the CIA on their stuff. It is like this isn't some conspiracy theory. This is what we know. This is what they do, what they're doing publicly. So the problem here is what we need to do to win, to be seen, is to break up this monopoly ourselves by decentralizing, moving away. And this goes back to what you were saying, right? We stop using companies that if they're going to hurt us, if they're going to stand up and make politics known and make politics an aspect of their business, then we need to respond by saying, then we don't participate in your business anymore. Like you
Well,
said, which airlines are you're looking at which airline you want to use, and you're like, well, which one doesn't hate me?
Well, I mean, I want to jump in and to our fans tonight, checking in, and I, as always, when I was a teacher, I would tell you a lot of times you learn things from your students, and I don't mean that like duh, of course you do, but what I mean is a lot of times they would come up with ideas. I had a professor when I was in graduate school, and he used to say that he's like sometimes guys, I'll be honest with you, and I mean this guy was a professor, this guy had done it all, tenure, everything. He had 30 something peer reviewed articles, I believe. And he was like, let me tell you something. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a class with some of my undergrads and they'll fire off some idea. And he's like, and I'll just sit there and be like, wow, I never would have. In 30 years of work, I've never once thought about it like that. And he's like, it's just amazing how you get these incredible ideas. So in that same theme, I look to our crew here tonight and on Wednesday nights, and I draw from them a lot. And so two examples have been posted right now that I want to draw from, and I want to give credit because as one who taught and worked with mass communication and journalism, it's important to me to properly cite here. So Titan, welcome aboard. Glad you're here again. Glad seeing you on these boards recently. I like the two ideas he put up there. And the one I'm going to draw attention to first and then build on is when he said, I think most people do not understand the difference between a republic and a democracy. You hear this when so many people throw these phrases around and you ask people, what kind of government institution is the United States? How many do you really think would say we're a constitutional republic? And how many do you think would say, well, we're a democracy? Well, Greece was a democracy. That didn't necessarily go the way that they had hoped, but it worked for a bit. And then Rome, of course, came in, and many concepts of the American administration model with regard to government is drafted very heavily from Rome. You could not have grown up in my house as a child without listening to my father. Make sure you knew that. But what I like that he says after that is when he comes and he says, well, it's true that maybe it's the basic gist is the comment down here and says, I think more of our senators in Congress, as I was saying, like they're not going to move till they have the numbers, that they would if they had a galvanized constituency behind them. I completely agree. Completely agree. And without throwing anyone under the bus here, this is me, and I'm absolutely want you guys to know right now, I'm going to declare this. I'm going to stereotype for a little bit because, as George Clooney's character in Up in the Air once said, I'm like my grandmother. It just saves time that way. So I'm going to stereotype a little bit. What I've noticed, let's call it the last 5 years, but I would say thematically about the parties for quite a while, is that conservatives / Republicans tend to be individualistic, tend to be government out of my life, smaller part of my life. I want to live, work, spend time with my faith, my family, my friends. That environment. In the last couple of years, especially, you've seen on the Democrat side and certainly on the left, activism and group mentality and group action. Now, I've said many times on this show that I respect the fact that they've been able to come together and do that, and that they did not let up the gas for 4 or 5 years of the Trump administration. Okay, that's where they are. The question now becomes, can a Republican ever win and not have to deal with that? Or was this truly a unique to Donald Trump moment? So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to draw from this, and what I'm going to say is, for me personally, drawing from that well of government small, I want to live my own life, I'm going to make the choices and go for them. I will tell you guys, you feel it. You feel a difference. I'm going to say it right now. I use DuckDuckGo on my phone for my search app. I don't know how many of you guys use a search engine like DuckDuckGo, but that's what I've been using instead of Google. And I'm used to it because, to be honest, I really only kind of hit the same kind of 10 or 15 channels, and they're all kind of thematically related. I mean, I'm kind of going to the same places on my phone, right? Most of us are checking email, we're reading news, we're going to YouTube, we're going to whatever. That's what I'm basically, maps and whatnot. Okay. I've got to be honest. DuckDuckGo actually, I think, is a cleaner interface. It looks a bit cleaner, but it's not as user friendly. I see why Google works. Maybe just because I'm so used to it, but I see why Google works. Years ago, I made the switch to Apple. About 15 years ago, I made the switch to Apple, and I felt comfortable. So maybe over time, DuckDuckGo will do it. But I made a change there. When I was looking for flights, I was literally looking at which airlines, and it started to come to me. I'll be honest, I didn't want to fly Delta. I'm the son of a flight attendant, and I've watched what the airlines can do when things start to happen. My mother flew with Eastern Airlines, for those of you who remember Eastern, and Frank Lorenzo and Continental Airlines. Frank Lorenzo was the CEO of Continental Airlines, who overtook Eastern and destroyed one of the world's premier and largest airlines in the world. In fact, from what I've been told, graduate students in Harvard Business School actually study that case to see what a job of a corporate takeover that was. I bring all of this up to simply say, I've seen the airlines impact my family personally, and when I see them now in the news giving out these opinions, I've spoken with Alex about this offline many times. It's just exhausting. I own stock in Coca-Cola, so I definitely want you guys to all drink 150,000 gallons a day. But because I love all of you as human beings and I don't want your pancreas to fall out, I definitely don't want you to do that. But also, in addition to that, seeing the way Coca-Cola was just going so hard to the left for a while, and then all of a sudden what happened? The market started talking, they started getting feedback, and even in their own internal memos and internal conversations, evidently, with their own attorneys, things started to go sideways. And now all of a sudden, Coca-Cola is going the opposite direction, right? I think when people see that impact, they'll start to adjust, whether it's an airline, whether it's a search engine, or whether it is a soft drink company. Now, full disclosure, I am, as I said, a Coke stockholder, but I don't use the product. I don't drink Coca-Cola. I don't like soda in general. And so, to be honest, I'm not some magnanimous character here talking about what great sacrifices I'm making. It's not true at all. But when I did look at the airlines, because I'm trying to visit my father before taking a work trip, and when seeing him, I thought, okay, well, Delta actually had more of a little bit of a streamlined flight. But I didn't want, I really, it went through my mind. I thought, my goodness, I'm making a decision based off of politics. And Alex, we were speaking about this last time about the these migrations that are going on with people moving. It's like, oh my goodness, people are literally moving because of politics. 30 years ago when you moved, 30 years ago, 10 years ago when you moved, it was for a job. It was to be closer to family. It was to buy a home. It was to go to college. It was to do X, Y, Z. It wasn't, well, I don't really like the way the politics, I'm going to move states, other than California and maybe New York. But now it's a thing. And who we fly is a thing. And the drinks we take are a thing. And I don't use Twitter. I refuse. I don't use Instagram. I'd get rid of Facebook. The only reason I have it is because it's like a daily planner that tells me my friends' birthdays. But I want to hand it back over to you to say, I have succumbed to this. Have you? I see where I'm now making decisions based. So am I technically protesting? Yeah, I am, I guess. I'm just realizing that my money is my voice in this kind of model, and therefore I'm going to use it that way as best I can.
And I think we all need to. I think we need to start making this is the problem, right? I think you pointed out. We tend to be very individualized. We don't want.
Sorry. Excuse me, Alex. I just read a comment. Excuse me, my dear friend. Please. I'm sorry. A salty one responded to my 10-minute diatribe about Diet Coke with drink scotch, save your pancreas, destroy your liver.
Well, first of all, that is absolutely true.
We not have and you are a man of Scottish descent. Do we not have the best fans in the entire internet? I mean, come on, ladies and gentlemen, slow clap yourself. I mean, slow clap. That's Alex. So first, it's all about you, my friend. Back to you. Back to you.
I don't know that we have fans. I think what we have are people who come to watch the monkey show. But no, and again, I completely agree, because what has the liver ever done for you? I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, what good is blood filtration? Thanks,
exactly.
Buddy. Thanks, buddy. I'm good enough on my own.
Yeah. Look, if you can wait, I'm just saying, if you can wake up every day, smoke, drink whiskey, smoke cigars, and live until you're 110, but Diet Coke is the thing killing you. I'm just saying maybe the liver is a little bit further down the line than the pancreas, because apparently the pancreas wants to hang on for a while.
Hey, those of you who had the honor of knowing my grandmother Millie, let me tell you something. That was a lady who only died at 92 because we lost mom. And let me tell you something. That woman lived on a diet. She was 88 pounds when she died, and she lived on a diet of 2 martinis, bacon, Reese's peanut butter cups, bacon with salt, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, at times, and pork chops. And for those of you who like pork chops, I'm not talking about a delicious, juicy pork chop. I'm talking about an Irish Catholic woman who used to take a pork chop, throw it in the oven, have one of those martinis, fall asleep watching Dan Rather, wake up however long she took a nap for, retrieve what was left of that, that piece of, I don't even know what it was. I think you could drive nails with it. And that was her diet. And her cholesterol was like 12. So let me tell you something. That 92-year-old, they used to build him. They just built him better back then. Let me tell you that. Depression,
Exactly.
2 world wars, and she was going full steam ahead. So let me tell you something. I'm with you on the liver thing.
Exactly. It's like maybe that's our big problem is that we've tried to get away from alcohol and we're trying. It's all this clean living. It's actually killing us. Um, now I completely forgot what I was going to say. Although I do want to respond to the salty one did mention that it's about capability with the United States government. You're right, and I would agree with that to a point. That if the government needs something, it is going to look to what is going, the ability to provide it. Although, let's be honest, the government sucks at being able to pick providers. I think we could find very easily companies that did not live up to their end of the agreement and did not provide what was requested, and nothing bad happened. That having been said, I don't have a problem with them going to Amazon or to Apple or to whatever for their needs. The thing is, though, they have other agreements and other protections that are allowing them to become a monopoly. It isn't just that the government's like, well, we need the server space. Let's go to Google to build the servers. That's not what's happening. They are, or to provide a particular service, is that they are getting other contracts and protections that allow them to become monopolies and actually prevent other smaller companies from showing up. That's my problem. Again, 230 is a great example where they love 230 until Facebook decides they want to do something that's clearly in violation of 230, but the government's going to let that slide. So again, it goes back to the government's picking winners and losers, and we have to find a way around that. It's going to be through lawsuits. People, again, Parler needs to be suing everyone who had anything to do with them being deplatformed. Straight up, end of story. Secondly, we as we're speaking here, we need to stop using services as we can and start looking for ways to use either alternative services like MeWe or whatever, or decentralizing. We need to change our mentality because, as Nick was so rightly said, the problem that we have is that we are by nature, if you're on the right, you're an individualist. You don't necessarily believe you believe in community, but you don't believe in groups. You don't believe that everyone needs to be put together in a group. The problem is we do need to do that. We need to band together to form a a block of buyers, of voters, of people who will speak up, of people who will sue to get what we need to get done. We believe in the power of persuasion. The problem is this is an ideological war. In war, you have to use the tactics that allow you to win. But this is ideological. This is not a violent. Well, I like to say it's not a violent war, but plenty of conservatives have been abused and murdered for the for that line to not necessarily be accurate. We should not be violent, but we need to realize where we are, which is we are in an ideological war. This isn't just spouting off on ideas and trying to explore them to come to a reasonable understanding. This is one ideology that is totalitarian in nature. It wants to remove freedoms and liberties. We cannot lose to this because if we do, there is nowhere else for us to go. There is nowhere else to go and get that freedom again. It is going to be over forever. This is our last stand, and we need to recognize it for what it is. The other thing we're going to need to recognize is the vast majority of Americans are not going to stand with us. Not because they don't disagree with us, but because they are too lazy and disinterested to care. That's the problem. But that's always been the problem. The American Revolution didn't succeed because 80% of Americans stood up and said, all right, King George, screw you and that funny hat. We want you out. It was 20 or 30% giving everything. That's how it was won. We
Well,
need to
and
get
again,
the
I think
20 and 30% today. We need to get us together to fight, to make this work.
sure. I think that we need. I'm sorry. Everyone tonight is going to open for Sinatra. I mean, just some of these comments. Ladies and gentlemen, do yourself a favor and read Briangela's comment at 7 minutes. It's at 7:47. You'll have fun with that one. No, what I'm saying is, and I want to address this from a clear perspective. I think human beings in general, in my opinion, we want to belong. We want to belong, whether it's to our church, to our family, to our team, our service members, to the mission, to the truth, to the police force, to the fire department, whatever. As humans, we have that desire. We're pack animals. I'm not saying that conservatives or those on the right or Republicans have the market cornered on individuality. I would say, though, that there is a difference between the independent and the collective. And I think that naturally, as you get older, I think for many of us, I certainly recognized in myself strides in growing towards conservatism as I got older. I imagine that's something that is a pretty natural step. I mean, I believe, as we've said on this show before, I'm sure, I believe it was Churchill that said, and I'm going to butcher this paraphrasing, but if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative in your 40s, you have no mind. Look, I think that the way things are going, the reason of tonight's show is, some of the playing on what it is, we're gonna do so much winning, you're gonna be tired of winning, and but also the play on kind of. Is this the earth shaking beneath our feet, or is this doing what we've spoken about on the show before? We do not want to turn this show into okay, well, for 4 years the left was just screaming that the sky was falling, and now it's our turn. I refuse to do that. I'm not going to empower the media to have that oversight and that kind of power on me. I'm not going to infuse politicians with that kind of authority and perspectives. I'm not. How much is my life going to change from 4 years ago to now, and from 4 years to 4 years into the future? I don't know. But I'm not going to let it get in the way of wanting to live my life with regard to the things that are important to me. Now, that may sound like I've really thought that out, but the truth of it is a lot of these have been much more recent breakthroughs that I've been really thinking about over the last, some several years, some longer than that, some much shorter than that. But the truth and the point that I'm trying to make is that I think that when we see groups of people, I agree with you. You're not going to get 300 million Americans that are going to go and, you see this all the time when people have gun rights questions, and they're like, well, there's 300 million Americans out there and 150 million of them have guns, and there's 300 million guns, and everyone's not going to come running out. There are a ton of people that if they were to come out tomorrow and say, okay, gun buyback, AKA confiscation, give us your weapons, people would be like, yep, here you go.
Exactly.
So I'm not saying
well, hold on. On that note, though, we do have breaking news.
Okay.
Texas State Senate passes HB 1927, aka constitutional carry, baby.
Oh, wow. It just passed right now.
Just passed. We just passed it. So I am going to feel really stupid about getting my LTC on Saturday.
Well, hold on. I will say this. I'm going to say this right now, and I'm going to advocate for anybody listening. Anyone who's ever spent any time with training or around weapons,
of course,
will tell you the number one law above all things, and this is that individual accountability piece that we might be talking about, and that is this: don't let it stop you from getting the training you need and want to make sure that you are responsible, because at the end of the day, as the gun owner, the supreme responsibility lies with you. So I'm going to advocate to everyone, though I love Texas going in that direction. There's nothing wrong with having training. There's nothing wrong with getting some of the whether there's online courses or whatnot. Do what you need to do to familiarize yourself, because the worst thing you can do is be a good guy with a gun trying to offset a bad guy with a gun who just turns into somebody rattling off bullets that doesn't know what they're doing. So I'm gonna say again, way to go, Texas. The Second Amendment's a good thing. Be responsible, and many times with gun owners, the biggest thing that I think truly demonstrates, I equate, this is going to be a bizarre comparison, but for our folks tonight, I'm going to share it with you guys. I equate a good gun owner with a good surgeon. They both understand the concept of restraint. And I think that's a very important element for us to hold on to. I'm very excited about this. We can talk about it in post-production. That's great. Go Texas.
So
But that responsibility, when you pull that trigger, is going to rest with you the rest of your life.
oh, completely agree. I mean, that's again, we are about liberty, we're about freedom, but that also means it requires personal responsibility, something that again is lost in our culture. So I am only half kidding about the constitutional carry or the license or the LTC class. But again, I'm only half because it was expensive. So yeah, no, training is definitely the thing to do. We have to be responsible and know. And given us in a given situation, you don't want to be the guy who's just out there Yosemite Samming it. Be like, I'm helping. No, know what you do. You got to know what you're doing. You got to go to the range. You got to be proficient with what you're doing. But the
Well, it's
point still
also more
stands.
enjoyable when you have if you have a tool on you. Ask anybody out there. Anybody out there who's tried to play the guitar, as opposed to someone who knows how to play the guitar. It's two different things. Anybody who's good with a weapon, who knows how to go to the range or go trap shooting, skeet shooting, target shooting, whatever. Several friends of mine that are military service members, that have had that training. Just the awareness. Are they going to go riding down the road with their M4? Well, obviously not with an M4, but like going down the road with their.
I'd like to have an M4
with their 9 mil or whatever. Like, sure, but do they understand how to use it? I tend to think you get more enjoyment out of things that you understand. Think about someone who's good in the kitchen. Think about someone who's good with technology. Think about someone who's good riding their bike or sewing or painting or writing, whatever. So again, I'm not here to lecture anybody on anything. I believe firmly enough in the Constitution that it states what it states. I'm just advocating that in the world that we occupy now, there may come a level of enjoyment, appreciation, and satisfaction that we get in that training, in going to the range and going, oh, I didn't understand the differences of caliber. I didn't understand the difference of, effective range. I didn't understand the differences of, understanding what it means to, how to squeeze the trigger, how to hold the weapon in your hand in such a way that you can become very, very good at that tactic, at that skill. Now, is home and self-preservation an underlying cause? Sure. I stand by every single one of you for that. Absolutely. Because I believe all of you have the right to protect yourselves. Now we will see what happens as this momentum makes its way up through this sweeping Supreme Court case. We will see what happens.
And so, but again, the real reason I wanted to report that wasn't just to celebrate, which, although, yay, but more to the point. What are we seeing? We are fighting back as states. We are taking back our authority. We are seeing states. We're galvanizing slowly. I think it's very easy to lose. It's very easy to lose heart because we look back and we're like, look at all these things the founding fathers did, and they were really. Guys, you have to remember all of the events that you are looking at take literally it's like a 20 or 30-year process. You see a single event. You don't see the 5 years before the next one. You don't see the 10 years between point A and point B oftentimes. It's sort of like when you're reading the Bible. We all tend to think, oh, there are miracles happening all the time in the Bible. No, there weren't. That's why they were miracles. It's just those are all the stories. We're not seeing that some of these stories take decades to tell. We're not seeing that that Joseph is spending 13 years in a prison. We're not seeing that, the shot heard around the world is 5 years before we actually see any real military combat. I mean, there's a lot of these things that we tend to think, but it's not moving fast enough. It's never going to move fast if you want it to move right. It's going to take time, but it's little steps. It's little movements.
You're right. It's designed that way. That's the whole teacup and the saucer. You're absolutely right. It's designed that way. Good. That's a great call. But I think what we're also starting to do is we're seeing the states push back. I mean, as the United States of America, and say, okay, here. Now, we've had this talk before. You push that pendulum hard enough to one side, naturally, the forces of gravity, social perspectives, whatever, entropy. I'm literally trying to think of any word that just sounds like I thought it out. Whatever you want to do. By the way, side note, there's a bonus point out for any of our teammates out there listening tonight. And I just saw the movie Tenet, directed by Christopher Nolan. If anybody out there can explain to me what I just watched, Alex will pay you with back rubs and IOUs for cheeseburgers, because I can assure you, I sat through an incredibly interesting movie that I have virtually no idea what happened. But I bring this up to say, because it was talking about entropy, I believe. But I want to get back to the main point. I digress.
I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, I want to get back to the main point. Oh, you'll get it. Your brain works that way. You'll walk out and be like, yeah. So what's the problem? Basically, it looked like it's kind of like a good guy robber flick. But there's all the elements of time and all this stuff, and it's very Christopher Nolan-y. Anyway, the point that I'm getting at is to your point about slower. So let me ask you this. Let's make it a direct question then. We'll tie it up with a direct question. For our folks wanting to get engaged out there and see that it's at that local level that these things are changing, what kind of local offices, what kind of local positions are we talking about that people could get engaged, that might listen to the show and say, look, I want to make a difference, and I don't want to just write to someone. I want to get out there and do so. Let's talk about it. Let's take 5 minutes at the end of the show and let's talk about it.
Well, actually, I think probably the first step, right, is going to be reaching out to your local party, libertarian. And you know what? This is maybe another conversation we need to have for libertarian side. Maybe the libertarians need to stop fighting with their own party, join the Republicans, but be the libertarian voice, be the conscience, right? We do need to start unifying. Now, again, this may require broader perspective. This may require a voice to eventually stand and unify, as I forget who mentioned it in the comments, that we do need a unifying voice, but that will come. That person will arrive. But for now, join your local Republican, go to the meetings, ask that question. Where do we not have Republicans? Get your voice heard, get in there, find in what's open. Do you understand how often there are positions that just no one runs for? Now, unfortunately, sometimes this is going to require sacrifice. Maybe you take a pay cut to do this. Maybe maybe you're not even running for office. Maybe you're just helping to mobilize people to go vote. You need to be a part of that movement. Go join, get your voice heard, find out what's needed, and fill that need. If you're not the best one to run for an office, get someone who is and say, this person needs to be the one running. Show them that they are needed to run. Find those offices that maybe they don't seem big, but we need somebody there making certain that right things happen and wrong things don't happen. Because there's so many of these offices on the local level that run and there's no competition to it. You just go. You can run. We can do this. We have to do it all the way up. And this does mean even DAs, DAs that are elected. A lot of times people are buying, Soros is able to buy a DA for $50,000 in some of these major cities because they just don't cost much because so few people actually vote on that. We need to get control of our DAs. We need to get control of our sheriffs. We need to get control of the local county, of your mayors, your boards. We need to get people there so that we can start fixing these things. Your PA, your PTA on the school board. We need to get people there, and that's going to require a lot of time and sacrifice on our part, but it's worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been inspired talking with you on this, Alex, and listening to our teammates here tonight and each and every week. And thank you guys for that. I want to take a quick moment. Susan put up a really great comment. Again, something I haven't thought of. Susan, I'm totally going to rip you off because it's a fantastic comment. So going forward, I'm going to share the wonderful idea that you put up. And if you guys can see it, she said, with regard to constitutional carry, I don't want to presume. I don't know if Scott is her husband or friend or whoever Scott is, great guy. He's got his concealed license. And even though the state may already have it, it gives him that granted utilization in 32 other states. Now, I'm not questioning Susan in this. I don't know what the numbers are. I trust our teammates here tonight, but what a great way of going about it, right? There's an idea that little license translates immediately to other states that may have reciprocity, meaning they'll validate your license from your state in theirs, but they may not have constitutional carry. So, just to be careful, let's share this information. So Susan, thank you very much for that. That's fantastic. And also thank you for checking in from Kentucky. What a teammate to step up. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah, guys, as we go through on this, I want to make sure that we're looking, that there's going to be there's going to be roadblocks at every channel. I was part of gatherings in social environments regarding some of the political movements years ago, and I'll tell you right up, guys, straight up. I mean, you're right. Sometimes at the local level, it's some of the most confrontational because it is face to face. But we can't, as Titan was saying, he's got to come in here and says, there is infighting at the local levels, but you can't let it deter our efforts. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's something that we do. To your earlier point, Alex, that we shook the world, and Paul Revere and the guys were out there, but it wasn't like 95% of the people in the towns were following people around saying the English are coming. We've got to stay active. We've got to do it. And I think that engaging at those levels, get involved in the parties, hop online. We're all here right now. When we're done with the show, hop on the local party thing, give them a call, see what their next meeting is. Check them out, guys. Let's do it. I'm down. I'm here to listen from you, whether it's, the comments that we were making earlier about the understanding the constructs of our government, or whether it was a salty one telling us how to blow out our livers. We do not endorse anyone blowing out our livers. In fact, we endorse you guys staying in touch with your medical teams as best you can. But a scotch every now and then can probably be warranted. I'm an on-drinker, so I'm not going to pose. I'm going to.
I was about to say.
I know what it's like to raise a sparkling glass of apple juice, and let me tell you, no, but and to Titan and
after a couple of rounds of lemonade, man, let me tell you, this guy gets a little loose.
I mean, look out, world. No, but I mean, and okay, so Scott is your husband, Susan. Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, no, great idea. Let's get involved. And guys, thank you for sharing on here. We would like to have some of you on the show. And I have had a chance to speak with a few offline, and you guys humble us with your engagement and support. So what I would like to do is, Alex has a direct line, and if you guys want to write to him, and if there's any interest, if you'd like to be on the show, go give us a thumbs up, and let us know, like in your thread. You don't have to do it on the channel thing, and let us know. We'd love to have you guys, maybe one or two. On kind of a call here to see what it is. We want to engage you, and we want to make sure that we're getting a chance for us to share our voice, because I think that both of us agree that there's certainly enough time in the world that the two of us are talking. It's great to listen to you guys. That's why I think we're so driven by the thread. But on that note, Alex, I'm going to tip it over to you. Guys, thank you for a great show tonight. So, I mean, that news, that was breaking. Thank you for that. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm actually going to go read about it. But team, thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your support. Thanks for the ideas. Titan, keep going on that route. Let's I don't know, maybe he needs to be our historical, correspondent. Titan, you kind of thematically have brought up a bunch of great ideas. I'd like to get some engagement from you. Maybe you put some thought into being on the show. A salty one seems to not only have the wit of a Tom Selleck, but certainly the welfare knowledge out there. Brian Chalez is someone that I'm not convinced Brian Chalez is not Dave Barry, who's just writing.
Hold on, Tom Selleck?
Oh, yeah, the mustache alone should have its own. The mustache alone should have its own Facebook page.
Well, I agree, definitely. No, Tom Selleck is an amazing man and makes me question many things about my life. But it just seemed like an odd pull. That's all I'm saying.
No, but I mean, this is so funny. There's a great many names on here of people that I've never met outside of our show, and yet I'm so grateful for the support. I mean, Susan is always sharing valuable information. The whole guideline about the conceal carry and reciprocity, that's fantastic. I mean, to Susan and Scott, I mean, that's fantastic for that share. Mm-hmm. Mr. D Knuckles been around. He's one of the old school, like one of the founders with us here. He's been around for forever. I don't see Cheese Freak tonight, but I know he's out there. And for all of you guys sharing stuff, but keep it up, guys. We want to do this. Let's see where we are next week. Let's see let's see if we've made some calls. Let's see if we've talked to some people. let's figure it out. Let's talk about maybe looking at conceal licenses. Let's talk about what are we going to do with the new news here in Texas. For those of us, you're up in the Dallas area. I'm down in the Central Texas, Austin area. Let's see what happens. What's stopping us from going and walking into the governor's office, talking to them? Let's see what we can do. Let's have some fun with this, guys. I'm with you. You're with me. Let's do it. And like I said, please reach out to Alex. Guys, he has the channel capabilities that I don't. To have you, if you'd like to be around, I'd like to get you there. Titan, I see your thumb up. That'd be great. Alex as the producer, co-producer, host, co-host, whatever. You're all the titles. Let's engage. Let's engage and see if we can maybe get something going for next show. Maybe we bring Mr. Titan in and we get some chatter. And then the rest of you guys that want to be a part, let's make it happen. What do you think, Alex?
I completely agree. In fact, we will create a pathway that is a little bit more convenient and for everyone.
Okay. Yeah, Titan, if you guys want to sync up with Alex, we'll make it work, buddy. Sounds like it could be fun.
Well, we will definitely make that work. Beyond that, guys, we will see y'all in a week. Hopefully, some more good things will occur. I'm certain some other ugly things will occur, but that's life. It's there's always rain, there's always sun. The question is, how do we allow the rain to water our crops and the sun to guide our path forward? We can't look at any one thing as no victory is total, no defeat is absolute. Let's keep moving forward. We're going to meet you back here in a week. We're going to see what's happened. We're going to move forward, even if it's just a step at a time. That is how we win. That's how, and by winning, I mean for everyone. We got to push this forward. And you know what? Even if maybe we die trying, but I would rather stand and fight the good fight than when I eventually stand before God, have him ask, why did you kneel? Why did you kneel when you were needed? Guys, we're going to see you in a week.
Take care, everybody.